moving on to the next hot topic, really, especially of the week, is in the NBA and around, especially regionally here for us in Boston, is the COVID issue that's going on with the Boston Celtics. Pat, what do you got on that?
Brutal going on right now. I mean, luckily the NBA is doing the right thing. They're postponing, a handful of games because of what's going on with the Celtics. They have 8, I think actually even 9 players that are either have COVID or are in COVID protocol, and this is really the first big test of the NBA in dealing with COVID. We saw it, when they were in the bubble and when the NHL was in the bubble, when all these leagues were dealing with the pandemic. It was a completely different story because they were isolated. They could really keep COVID out of the facility, and it worked out really well. It was unbelievable how well the bubble was at both the NBA and the NHL up in Canada. Now that they're bouncing around to all the different arenas, almost like a regular schedule, and you have a condensed schedule where you get to fit a lot of games in, you're having these players, go to all these different cities all the time, even though they're trying to keep the travel limited, and this was bound to happen. But I think also one thing that we have to look at too is the players themselves have to be more accountable, because what happened with the Celtics to start off with COVID was that there were 4 Celtics players in a car together: Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Tristan Thompson, and Carson Edwards. They all rode in a car together, and only Carson Edwards had a mask on. The other 3 guys didn't. Then, of course, Robert Williams gets COVID, and the other 2 guys, Tristan Thompson and Grant Williams, have to sit with Robert Williams because they were in a car with him without a mask on. If the other 2 guys had worn a mask, or if Robert Williams had worn a mask, it could be a completely different story. It might have been just Williams sitting out. The other 3 guys might have been okay, and the Celtics might have had a few more players, over this past week that they might have even been able to play. But you have that. Now you have Tatum, who got COVID, and because Tatum got COVID, Jaylen Brown, who obviously spends a lot of time hanging around Tatum, both during games and pregame and everything else. You got Semi Ojeleye and also Javonte Green, who has to sit out because of COVID protocols. The one good thing I'll say about this, Tatum's getting it now. And now or at least you're pretty sure Tatum's not going to get it for the rest of the season. So it's better to have Tatum get this now and deal with it now than in April or May, when you're in the postseason, you're fighting for a playoff spot, and your best player has to sit out because of COVID. So I think this is almost a little bit of a blessing in disguise that Tatum got it now, but still, this is a headache for the Celtics and for the NBA, because now you're seeing all these other games get postponed as well, and this is going to be a big to-do for Adam Silver.
Yeah, man, first off, I like your glass half full analogy, really, and thinking, hey, let's get it now, so in case he doesn't have to get it later on in the playoffs, and he'll be available to play. So that does work out good, and if you're going to have a silver lining in it, I think that's what it is. But it's really tough right now. I think, especially, like I said, regionally here, you said like those first 4 got knocked down. We were like, all right, hey, maybe we can still get it done. But then when Tatum gets it, whoa, boy, was that a big knock. And that was some big news that I think we weren't expecting. And then just by the close contact and the COVID protocols that are going on, like you said, now it puts pretty much over half the team into quarantine protocol. And just by safety standards for the NBA, which I completely, totally get, you need 8 players to be able to play. I mean, this is a game where you got to have 5 on the court at all times. So you need 3 on the bench, and that's for injuries. It's not for people getting tired. These guys are young. They can run the length of the court. They can play back-to-back nights, but it's for injuries. You might have 1 or 2 injuries in the game, maybe even 3, and now you're asking 5 guys to play 40 minutes, maybe 40 plus if the game goes into overtime. So really, that's where a lot of these guys with close contact and the close contact COVID protocol, that puts them out, and then that's what put all these games in jeopardy. And the Celtics have had their last 3 games postponed due to this, having lack of the amount of players that you need, which is at least a minimum of 8 on the roster that are active. And I think currently they only have 7 that they could have active. And like you said, this is not just the Celtics that are dealing with it. It's other teams around the NBA that are going to be dealing with it. I know I saw the Philadelphia 76ers having to play Dwight Howard at point guard the other night. And boy, the memes on Twitter, if you saw the memes on Twitter that night about Dwight Howard playing point guard, they were amazing. But a lot of teams are going to be having to deal with this. You've seen it in the NFL, teams not having either one positional group, not having their running backs or tight ends. I think a team didn't have any quarterbacks that one game, right?
Yeah, Denver.
So you're going to see this going ahead in the NBA. And sadly, it's because COVID really is running rampant in the country right now. And obviously, there's no bubble, like you said. They're still traveling around. And I don't know, man. I think people are trying to be safe. The teams are trying to be safe. But it's really tough right now in this age of COVID to kind of keep your team in a bubble, per se, and to keep guys safe.
Yeah, I think one thing that the NBA just kind of tightened up some of the COVID rules too. Before, if guys were in a hotel, on the road, they were allowed to have visitors, and it's like, is that smart for the NBA to allow that? I know, the players when they were in the bubble, they felt so isolated, and I know it's tough, and I can't even imagine what it was like to not see family, to not be able to go out just to blow off steam after a playoff game or something. But you're in the middle of a pandemic. They got to – I think they made the right call. I think it was yesterday they had an owners or general managers meeting, and the commissioner talked to everybody and said, we got to tighten up these rules. So now they're not allowed visitors in the hotel. They actually can't meet before the game, I believe, something like 10 minutes before they go out on the floor.
Limited pregame interaction.
It's very, very limited pregame interaction. Until they go out onto the floor and they have more space to distance themselves from each other with the 6 feet rule and spreading apart there. So I think those are going to help, but I think they should have done that earlier. I know it's tough. These guys are only a few months away removed from the bubble where they were so restricted, but you have to do that if you want to get through this pandemic, if you're the guys from the NBA.